Welcome to Truth Wanted. We search for proof of gods, ghosts, aliens, or any other questionable claims, but we haven't found any yet. So, do you have the evidence we've been looking for? Well, then call us because the show is starting right now. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Truth Wanted. I am your host, Objectively Dan, and this is the live call-in show that happens every single week, Fridays at 7 p.m. Central Time. We talk to people about what they believe and why. So if you'd like to call us, you can do that now, and you should. The number is 512-991-9242, or you can call through your computer at tiny.cc/calltw. As always, Truth Wanted is a product of the atheist community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. And every single week, I always have a special guest. This week is no different. It's Armin Navabi, everybody. Armin, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Thank you for joining us today, Armin. You are a prominent ex-Muslim figure. You're a founder of an organization called Atheist Republic, and you're known to getting into some shenanigans worldwide. You were just telling me how you have a police warrant or police arrest warrant in India or
Yeah,
something. Yeah, five.
Yeah.
Five. That's a lot. That's more than me. Okay, so you know.
For blasphemy, not for anything like
Right,
that.
right. You didn't murder
Yes.
anybody. Just for you just
No.
said Hinduism or some of the gods are kind of whack. So as far as I know. But
You
Armin,
try, yeah.
welcome to the show. Yeah, and thanks again for being on here. So are you ready to talk to some people today?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
actually looking forward to it. This is going to be a lot of fun. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I want to talk to you in a little bit about your background and story as well. But before we do that, we have to talk about our question of the week. The We Want the Truth
yeah.
segment here, folks. So last week we asked you to name an unexpected object recovered from Area 51, and we have our top 3 favorite answers here. So number 3 comes from Blake Walker, who said, unexpected object in Area 51. A working model of the flat earth that comports with all known science. Now that would be very, very unexpected. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? That would be awesome. I would love that, actually. I just think that'd be rad. But yeah, that's a good one. Here's another one. Number 2 comes from Chuck Gatos, who says, unexpected object found in Area 51. Every scrap of wood that was ever sold using the claim that it was from Christ's cross. The excess is being shipped to Area 52. So yeah, like all the artifacts combine in sort of like a.
Would they have enough room for that?
I don't know. That's a good question. It'd be like a really big cross. I mean, it's like a Power Rangers situation here. Like it just forms a giant mecha or something. That'd be interesting. But our number 1 answer this week is awesome. It comes from Anarcho Possum, who says, unexpected object found in Area 51. A polar bear. I mean, that's unexpected, right? I mean, yeah, I guess if you found a polar bear, I don't know. That just made me laugh when I saw that. Because yeah, unexpected stuff. Personally, I would have, like remember a couple years ago, Armin, when there was that thing on Facebook where people were like, "Oh, we all got to storm Area 51." Like I knew that wasn't gonna happen, right? I knew people were just gonna like fuck around, but part of me wanted at least like one guy to get in there. You know what I mean? Like just one. I understand legally there's complications there, but I can't say I wouldn't want it to happen. So anyway,
that was a dangerous trend. I was worried somebody is going to get shot.
Because, no, like, I thought so too. I thought so too. But
I don't rush at militaries,
But yeah. Here's my official advice on Truth Wanted. Okay, don't rush into military zones that you're not supposed to. Okay, that's fair warning for everybody. But Naruto running, that's different. That was the best part from that. If people doing the Naruto run, you know what I'm talking about, Armin?
Yeah. I saw that.
That was great. So we do have a prompt for this week, Armin. And this week, for you viewers, you should answer us, is create a useless conspiracy theory. Now, we usually ask we tell our guests ahead of time, hey, we're going to be asking this question, so think of some answers. Armin came up with 3 and like wrote it out in bullet points, and they're like really good. So, Armin,
Okay.
what are useless conspiracy theories you came up with?
I mean, I came up with 3, so you guys could pick one of them. But you guys are now you're saying I should read all 3
Yeah,
of
you
them.
got to read
Okay,
all
I will.
3. They're all really good.
Okay,
I want to hear them.
okay. All right. So the first one is, these are useless conspiracy theories.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I really think like the third one might not actually be useless. I think I'm starting to believe the third one, but okay,
We'll get to it.
let me
We'll
read
get
them.
to it. Let's see.
Yeah. Okay. Religious experiences are the result of a cosmic Wi-Fi network granting access to hidden spiritual knowledge.
Which
That's the
is
first one.
awesome. That's so great
Yeah.
because like you can combine some other stuff like the 5G towers. Oh, that's actually amplifying the religious
Yeah. You're right. I
experiences.
didn't think
You
about
know,
that. Yeah, you could do a lot with this.
there's some
Yeah.
combo there. Anyway,
Yeah.
tell me the other ones because they're good too.
All right. So the second one is penguins rule a hidden underground empire, manipulating global events for their amusement. I
Bro,
really like that last part. Yeah.
I've been saying this. All right. I've been saying this
You
for
have?
years. Okay. 2007. Why did we have like 4 fucking penguin movies that came out that year? That's crazy.
Yeah.
They were trying some
Yeah.
stuff. That was a precog, trying to make us think about stuff. Anyway, that's
Yeah,
real.
but
That's a real one. That's all I'm saying. So
I think that for the amusement part at the very end is what makes it the extra uselessness.
yes,
Because it doesn't even
just for fun,
achieve anything.
just
Yeah,
for
yeah.
kicks.
Just having entertainment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Last one is this one, and I really added this as a joke, but I've been thinking about it, and this just makes too much sense for it to just be like a conspiracy theory. But here it is: washing machines are engineered by clothing companies to consume socks, forcing you to buy more.
Yeah.
This
So
one, yeah.
that could like now we have to do you've seen those images that go around Facebook and stuff, right? Where it's like, oh, all these companies are owned by the same people. Right now I
Yeah.
have to see is like the Fruit of the Loom owned by, I don't know, General Electric or whoever makes like the most washing machines. I don't know, because you might have something there. You know what I mean?
No, but yeah, I mean, last one is just too. I mean, there's no. I mean, can you think of any other explanation?
Yeah, I don't know.
Do you,
That's the best one. Maybe
yeah,
wormholes or something, like maybe washing
yeah.
machines have access to that spiritual Wi-Fi network and it like
Oh
kind
yeah,
of
you're right.
it goes on the gets
You're
caught up in
mixing
the
them now.
stream. Yeah,
You're mixing my conspiracies together.
I
Okay.
definitely am. But those are great. So folks, leave your comment below. What is your create a useless conspiracy theory? I want to hear it. It will read the top 3 next week. But now, Armin, this is time where I get to talk with you, Armin Navabi.
Okay.
As I said, you are founder of an organization called Atheist Republic, and you do a lot of stuff. Armin, how would you describe yourself? Because you got a lot of things to your name, I'd say.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how to put them all together. We just do so many different things, but I
Yeah.
guess if I could, I try to break taboos and create a community of people who like to do the same. That's how I summarize
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I mean, you've talked a lot about your experience as an ex-Muslim over the years as well.
Yeah.
I have a lot of ties in that community as well. We don't always like, I think one thing I think we should do more on this show is feature ex-Muslim voices in particular, because I mean, how many people in the world are Muslim, right? Over 1 billion. And we most of the time talk about Christianity, but it's like we are leaving out experiences from other people that I can't talk as critically about as you can. So would love
You
to hear.
can actually. I don't know
Well,
what
yeah,
you're talking about.
I mean, like I can criticize it, right? But it's like I feel like your criticism is going to be more interesting than mine because I was never a Muslim, right? So I don't know what that's
I
like.
mean, have
So
you ever been a flat earther?
no.
No.
Yeah.
Do you not criticize flat earth
Okay.
here?
You know what? Good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
But here's the difference, okay? Flat Earth stuff, for the most part, that is I mean, obviously it dates back to ancient times, but as a
Mhm.
phenomenon, it's pretty small globally, I would say, right? Which is hilarious talking about flat Earth and the globe. But flat Earth isn't as big as Islam. You know what I mean? Like Islam has affected humankind, period, right? Like
Okay.
culturally and
have you ever? Okay, then I'll give you a different example.
Yeah.
Okay, have
Okay.
you ever
Okay.
believed in anti-Jewish conspiracy theories? Have
I
you
don't
ever
know that
believed in
I
them?
have personally, but I definitely have known people
Okay.
growing up. Yeah.
Okay, but you haven't, right? So you
Yeah.
haven't, right?
That's
Okay,
fair.
so and that one is big. That one
That is
is
big.
really as
That
and
is big, and
old
that's historically
and
significant.
ancient.
You're definitely right
Yes,
about that. You're definitely right. Okay,
right.
fair points here, Armin. I would say this
Yeah.
though too, is that like in the modern world, Islam has social impacts that are largely
Mhm.
like I am largely unaffected by. You know what I mean? As someone who grew up in the United States, never grew up in an Islamic community, everything I know about Islam has come from books and folks like you who talk about it. Like, you know what I mean? There is something to it. Like if an atheist, for example, Armin, I talk to other atheists a lot, right? And I hear them
Mhm.
say stuff about Christianity, and I'm like, wow, if you talk to Christians with your arguments, you're gonna sound so bad because you don't know what it's like. You're kind of being really aggressive, or you're making a lot of assumptions and stuff. Like there is a nuance to that conversation there. Do you disagree?
I agree. Okay, but if you're talking about criticizing the details about Islam,
Sure,
then
sure.
maybe you need more information. Okay,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
the basics. Okay, there was a
Hmm.
dude that an angel brought a message to him from God. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
that's one of the foundational beliefs. Okay, you don't need to know. I mean, yeah, maybe you shouldn't be. Maybe you don't have enough knowledge to know this whether this certain hadith is actually causes this problem or
Yeah,
not.
sure, sure.
Okay,
Yeah,
but you are in a position to be able to say that, okay, that's the whole foundation, the very foundation of Islam is ridiculous, right? You
100%.
know that part of it, yeah, I mean, it
Yeah,
has God in it, and you
sure.
know that's just baseless, right? So
Yeah,
there you
yeah.
go. So what else do you need to know,
No,
right?
yeah,
So
that's good.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
No.
yeah.
You make a good point. I feel like your response, every other ex-Muslim I've talked to, I think shares a similar sense. I feel like where I come from, there's a lot of hesitancy in talking about Islam, but every ex-Muslim I'm talking to is like, no, fuck it, just go all out. And like you in particular, Armin, I think you're very outspoken about Islam. You are extremely critical, I would say, which I think inspires people, but also can put people off. Do you think like that sort of response, does that matter to you if people are put off by it, or are you just like, we got to break the taboo and just kind of, go for it?
Well, W- Well, I mean, every time people say I'm doing something that puts people off, those are
Yeah.
the things that actually gets more Muslims interested in talking to me. So I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what people are on about, because people are like, oh, if you do this, they don't want to talk to you, so they wouldn't even hear what you have to say. But every
Sure.
time I did one of those things, my inbox was filled with Muslims who wanted to talk to me. So it actually
Yeah.
is the opposite in my experience. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I don't
that's
know.
interesting.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
talking, for example, you recently, there's an ongoing campaign with Atheist Republic posting pictures of women without hijabs, and also like what I think you called it, was it sexy Muslims or whatever, and sexy Hindu gods as well, kind of drawing things and in a sort of parody sense, but also like how would you describe what you've been
Well,
doing
those
with
are
that?
different things.
Sure,
And
yeah,
so women in Iran taking off their hijab, that's not our campaign. That's part of a revolution that is happening right now in
sure,
Iran against
sure.
the Islamic regime. We're just highlighting that, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, of
that's
course.
one thing. Yeah, yeah. And I could talk about that for hours.
I would
So
love to talk about that
but
more in a bit too. Yeah.
yeah. But what we so yeah, we do highlight that. But the other thing that you're mentioning is the
Hmm.
blasphemous art project that we
Right.
do, right? So you could actually check that out at blasphemousart.com. And we basically make very explicitly sexy drawings, very beautiful. Like, we don't make it disgusting, or like very beautiful but explicitly sexy images of Hindu gods and goddesses and Muhammad and other figures within Islam and Jesus and Mother Mary, and also like ancient religion,
Mm,
like
mm.
Greek gods and goddesses, Egyptian gods and goddesses, just because we want to have fun, Filipino gods and goddesses, right?
Sure.
African gods and goddesses. But yeah, but we come back, and also women um in hijab doing all sorts of nasty things to each other. We do, it's all drawings, but it's all based on things that people tell us not to do, and we do it
Yeah.
because they're trying to force us not to do, just so that we make it clear that you can't tell us what not to do. But I don't. The interesting thing about the blasphemous arts that we make, again, that's at blasphemousart.com if you want to go check it out. The interesting thing is that anybody that doesn't have a religious mindset would look at that art and would say, how is this insulting? This is actually beautiful. Like people were really offended. Hindus were very offended that we drew one of their goddesses, Kali, right, in a very gorgeous, beautiful, sexy way. But other people were looking at it like, how is this insulting? This is like the best drawing of your god that has, like, you Hindus should be thanking us. Like, throughout thousands of years of Hindu history, you haven't come up with a drawing as beautiful of your goddess as we have. So I think they should be saying thank you. So I'm it's strange that they're
That's
insulted
great.
by it.
You're like, no, actually, you should be thanking me. This is actually
You
really
should be
good.
thanking us. This is an improvement of Hinduism. Like, what are you guys talking about?
Improvement. Oh my goodness. But yeah, let's jump to that topic real quick you were mentioning, because you've been talking about it a lot recently. There is kind of a revolution going on in Iran and broadly in other parts of the world too, but specifically in Iran, right, where the hijab is coming off, right? People are like
Yes.
not wearing hijab in public. So you would have to tell me on the specifics of this, but basically Iran has had a very interesting cultural history, right? So like Iran used to be a lot more secular in its sort of legislation, right? And so there's you go online, you see pictures of Iran in like the 70s and other places where women and people in general are wearing secular, like, stuff you'd see in the West prominently, right? Like shorts, t-shirts, stuff like that. But like
Bikinis at the beach.
bikinis at the beach and stuff. But like in places specifically in Iran, there are, I mean, literally, I don't know what the word is, but it's like imams that are like policemen basically that will like patrol you and say, oh, you're not wearing the right clothing, and like you can get
Morality police.
yeah, and you can like get into legal trouble for this sometimes, right?
You could be killed.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what happened to Mahsa Amini.
Yeah, and so this has been going on, I mean, for a little while now, but this to me is just a great example of why we should be talking about this kind of thing more, because I hear this. Obviously I don't talk about Islam as much as you do, but I hear this talking point from more liberal-minded people sometimes who say, "Oh, wait, well, Islam is actually really pro-feminist, right? It's really helpful towards women because it helps
Who
instantiate
says
and
that?
institutionalize roles." I've heard people say this. I really have.
Oh wow. Okay.
And you
I
see
wish I
like
was
what's
there.
going on with the people like who can't even not wear a hijab in public and be scrutinized. I mean, like, it's really, you see some of these videos, right? And people are just like, oh my goodness, she's not wearing it. She needs to be, doing X, Y, and Z. And they're just like walking around in public, like not wearing a hijab. Like that is the only crime that's happening, quote unquote crime, right?
Yeah. So actually, the taking off the hijab in Iran
Yeah.
right now by women against the law,
Yeah.
it's beyond just about the hijab. It's not just about the hijab, right?
Mm.
So in Iran, the hijab is the symbol of the government, right?
Mm.
There's a lot of meaning behind the hijab. It's a sign that the government is showing that it has authority there, and it's the presence of the regime and its
Sure.
power, right?
Sure.
And the ability to enforce Islamic laws, because the
Mm.
government has an Islamic brand, and the fact that women are wearing the hijab shows the presence of the government and its power and its force in every corner and in every place, right?
Yeah.
So it's the government's soft power, right?
Mhm.
So the government had weaponized the hijab because the government also get its legitimacy from Islam. Like, the main reason why we have to accept the Islamic Republic is because the Islamic Republic is the government for the Mehdi to come, and this is the government that will have the army for the Mahdi to inherit from this government when he appears, right? So the legitimacy of the government comes from Islam. So if people don't accept Islam, the government would not have legitimacy, and Islam, not just Islam, but also Islamic rule, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
there's no better way to display that by enforcing Islamic laws. And the most visible Islamic law that you could enforce is for women to have their hijab on. So it goes back to Islam using women's bodies in so many different ways as a tool. And here you can see it being used as a soft power, right? So in the same way that the government has weaponized the hijab, now the women in Iran, and also men, I could explain how men are part of this fight as well, are using taking off the hijab, not just to retake their freedom, but also to show the inability of the government to now enforce its Islamic laws, to basically show to demonstrate the weakness of a government and to show the people's power against this oppressive regime. So it's a form. It's not just like I want to be free to wear what I want. It's also a form of this civil disobedience to show that you can't put us back in a box. So taking off the hijab is a form of saying no to the entirety of the regime, not just no to the hijab.
I'm really glad you add that context, because I think that's super necessary to explain, because if you do explain that to the average person who isn't aware of what's going on there, it may just seem like, oh, this is about civil liberties, and it is about civil liberties, but it is more than that for a lot of people, right? It is an act of direct sort of I don't want to say aggression, I would say response towards government powers at B, because Iran, for those of you who aren't aware, is incredibly when it comes to separation of church and state, like Iran is one of the worst examples in the world. You know what I mean? It's like there's so much intermingling.
It's a theocracy.
I mean, I think I don't know how legal scholar or political scholars would ultimately define it, but to the average mind, it's a theocracy for sure, right? Maybe
the scholars also define it as a theocracy.
Yeah, no, I get it. Well, because there are some democratic processes, but at the same, it is ultimately. Well, I mean,
no, it's a show.
You think it's all? You don't think any voting that happens on the
ground?
No.
Yeah. The voting, it means nothing. So you have the parliament, and you have like the three branches of the government, okay? And you have elections, okay? But the ultimate power is in the hands of the supreme leader and the IRGC, which are not democratic. Like there is nothing that the parliament can do if the supreme leader says no to. It's all a show. It's a complete fake democracy. There's nothing democratic about the entire process, and that's why people are realizing. That's why people are now protesting by not voting, because it means nothing. Your vote has zero value.
Yeah. So like, what do you think are the prospects of places like Iran? Because like, there have been other movements like the Arab Spring and stuff, for example, that like people were very hopeful on, but like kind of lost traction over time. Do you think what's been happening recently?
I haven't given up on the Arab Spring. Like if you look at the French Revolution, for example, right? If you looked at the 10 years after what happened, right? You would think that it was a failure. Like look at what happened, but if you look at 100 years after the French Revolution, it was a major success. Right.
No,
so I think it might be
point.
too.
You think it might be too early to call, which I think is no, that totally makes sense. I think people expected, what I think it is too. I think people expected it to happen a lot faster than how it has been going, right? I guess the speed of the internet makes people think that a change will happen faster as well, but
it has been happening. But it has been very fast. Like in Iran, for example, in the past 40 years, around half, I think 47% of the population went from being religious to not being religious.
Really?
This is the half. So this is the fastest, the mass exodus of people out of religion in the history of mankind. This is in a country of 85 million people. People leaving religion. And we're talking about leaving Islam, not to go to another religion. We're talking about leaving Islam to no religion. And I'm not
mm.
talking atheism, because atheists, I think people who don't believe in God in Iran are like 20%. So, but the majority, Iran, based on the latest stats that we have, Iran is a Muslim minority country. It's a Muslim minority country.
That's interesting. I've never heard that
Yeah.
before. That is
Yeah.
news to me. But see, that's why you're here, Armin, so you can tell me about those things. So,
I mean,
yeah.
the greatest. Here's the thing: as we fight religion and dogma and superstition, okay, but apparently, the greatest force against religion in the history of the world, that has resulted in more people leaving religion than anything, has been the Islamic Republic of Iran. So, thank you for your service. so I guess.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's one perspective for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you're able to give that context because, like, again, I'm learning things in this conversation that I feel like I should know. You know what I mean? But like, again, like these issues just don't affect me on a day to day. You know, and I'm glad you and others like you are in touch with that to be able to speak to it. So, it's
Yeah.
important, I think, that we have those kind of broader conversations. You look like you were going to say something.
No, I mean, it will, even if it will impact you. I mean,
Yeah.
Islam is going to be the biggest religion in the world pretty soon, right?
Yeah,
And
I would agree with you on
and
that. Yeah.
yeah, and here's the thing: I don't want to do like a fear mongering, creeping Sharia kind of thing, right? That's bigoted and all. But I do want to mention that we're all in this together, right? So this is I'm becoming more connected. It's not about like this country or that country. I think the way to fight dogma and superstition is to all of us to get connected together, right? And this should be a global movement. And we're not living in isolated countries where your dogma doesn't affect me. I think if secular activists and atheist activists and rationalists and skeptics and humanists in the world like look at this as one major fight for liberalism together, I think we will be more effective in each country, as as well, because we're growing superstition and religion and conservatism in one place is going to affect the entirety of the world. I mean, look at, for example, what's happening in Israel, right?
Yeah.
We have been, way before what happened recently in Israel, we have been raising the alarm about the growing right-wing religious tendencies and political power of ultra Orthodox Jewish movements there.
Right.
And now that it's taking over the government, it's impacting everybody. It's not just
Absolutely.
impacting Israel; it's impacting the entire planet. So
you
these are
right.
all connected.
This is my, see, I'm putting on my American exceptionalism, glasses here and saying, oh, well, it's just, we're fine. It doesn't affect us. But no, you're right. You're absolutely right. Everything you said is correct. I would say amen to that, Armin, because it's like, if you're in this thing, if you really want to be critical, you shouldn't just pick one thing because, oh, like it just personally affects you, or you just have a bone to pick with like Christianity or whatever. Like, I think if you want to consciously and actively address the issues that come with a lack of separation of church and state in your government, but also a lack of liberalism and a lack of secularism in your society, you have to be with everyone. You know what I mean? You have to be able to take things in a global perspective, because otherwise, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, what's the point? Why are we even talking about this stuff? What will we have in common? I don't know. We probably both like the same movies or something, Armin. But like that is what motivates me, and I know that's what motivates you, because you go hard in the paint, Armin. I mean, like, you put, I've seen the stuff you do, man, and like the death threats you get, I don't want. Okay, but
Okay.
I'll do my best. You know what I mean?
Oh, thank you.
But you're a good guy. But let's go ahead and get to some calls here. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm
All
excited.
right, cool. Let's do it. We got some callers that want to talk to us today. And of course, if you want to talk to us, you should do that. The number is 512-991-9242, or visit tiny.cc/calltw. And we'd love to hear from you. And Armin would love to hear from you too. So first off, we got Emmanuel, who is calling in from California. Emmanuel, you are live on Truth Wanted. What's going on?
Hey Dan, we spoke before if you remember.
Yes, I
Uh,
do remember.
Yeah.
well,
I'm not
last
hearing
time
him.
you were actually,
Her or
hello?
him.
Oh, Armin
Hello?
may have some issues, but I can hear you right now. We're gonna try to fix that in the background. So go ahead, Emmanuel.
Okay, so last time you were asking if we had any sort of like metaphysical experiences. It was like a challenge. I called in, Truth wanted, but you know, the guys didn't actually take my call because there were a lot of callers and stuff. And I called in really late. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh, damn, I gotta like call again, maybe next week. So I waited for a whole week when they were actually where they were like challenging us if we had any sort of like spiritual experiences and stuff, and how we could actually justify those sort of things. I don't know if you were actually the host of Truth Wanted at that time. So is the challenge on or off? I just wanted to.
I mean, so as far as I mean, is the challenge consisting of like you providing some sort of evidence of the metaphysical, like through call-in here, or like what exactly are you proposing?
No, they were actually saying that how could you tell like a delusion or like a hallucination from a real
Sure.
experience, and how is it like how do you like I don't know what you call, how do you demonstrate that yours is actually superior to other experiences like with other religions and stuff?
Right. Sure.
And that's why I wanted to like raise an alarm, and I was like, I had too many of those that I can't actually pick. I mean, I could pick one or two. Then I know for sure that those may be like, you know,
Well, let's go
being
with this,
being
Emmanuel.
like
Let's you know, obviously, and I respect the fact that you have had multiple experiences, right? And like due to the limitations of it being a call-in show, right, we're just not going to be able to talk about all of them. But like, pick your best one for me. Pick the one that you is most impactful and most meaningful to you, and let's talk about that.
yeah. So you know, when I came to Christianity, you know, when I came to Christianity, and you know, I became like a Christ believer. I started reading the Bible, and there was like certain passages in the Bible, Acts 2, 1 Corinthians 14, that talks about speaking in tongues. And one time I was like teaching at a Mennonite church back in Ethiopia when I was in Ethiopia. So I was teaching from Acts, and when I started like praying, you know, we were laying hands and stuff, and they were, I mean, they received what you call like a baptism of the Holy Spirit, and they started like casting out devils, speaking in tongues, and you know, they were like completely changed. So
Sure.
what I would say is like we had the same experience that the apostles had in Jesus' time.
Sure. Experience of Pentecost. Yeah. I mean, that is sort of, you know, a tenet of Pentecostalism. I don't know if you identify as a Pentecost, but right, it is this idea that look, the experiences that the apostles had after Jesus' death, you know, the speaking of tongues and stuff can be a thing today. Basically, there's dispensationalists who is a dispensationalist. I'm getting my theology mixed up, who basically say or that, you know, hey, these miracles and stuff don't actually happen today, and there's some that say, oh, they do. And so it sounds like you're solidly in the camp that these experiences not only do happen but are evidence of the Holy Spirit being a thing, which is interesting. My response to this, though, Emmanuel, is I would say that if I went to your thing, if I was there with you, and if Armin was there with you, I don't think that would happen to us. I think what happens in a lot of these circumstances is more of a cultural understanding and more of a learned experience than it is something that happens organically. Now that is my claim. I, you know, can't obviously speak to every single person's experience and tell them, oh, you're wrong because X, Y, and Z. But just hearing you talk about it, I would find it very hard to believe if Armin went to this as well, and the same thing would happen to him, because I really think that this is something that it's kind of a learned thing to do. And I'm not Pentecostal. I was not Pentecostal, but I've heard from other Pentecostals, former Pentecostals, that this is something that can be activated, right? Like you can start speaking in tongues and do the casting of devils and stuff. Just
Again, I was not
because
even a
you're part of that.
Pentecostal
Go
at
ahead.
that
Yeah, go
time.
ahead, Emmanuel.
I was not a Pentecostal at that time.
You were a Christian, right?
I was actually a Mennonite. So I don't know why being a Pentecostal have to do with the fact that, I mean, I am a Pentecostal now, but I used to be a Mennonite at the time.
Well, Mennonites are Christian as
so
well.
I don't, yeah, it is a form of Christianity, but they don't require you to have those experiences.
Yeah.
You know,
and
you are like we're.
I understand the difference there, but you know, I think like there's enough in common culturally where you can look at that and say, like, hey, like I kind of understand what's going on. And like and again, I don't want to be dismissive of your experiences entirely. I'm not saying that what you felt in that moment wasn't real, right? But like I do think that we can kind of get ourselves into these experiences that are more culturally learned than we might think. But Armin looked like he had something he wanted to say. So go ahead, Armin. Yeah.
Well, so because the audio was cut for me at the beginning, my understanding is that Emmanuel is saying that his religious experiences prove that his beliefs are correct. Is that the gist of it?
So
Is that
Emmanuel was challenged and said it was challenged to talk about his religious experience that he found to be most credible. And he cited this one. So that's the one that we're talking about. Yeah.
So Emmanuel, I have a question. I'm assuming you don't believe in the Mahdi of Muslims who's supposed to come back and take over the world. I'm assuming you don't believe in that, right?
You know, I'm not American, so Islam was pretty much popular at the area where I grew up with. The reason I think that Islam is a false religion is because of the doctrine, right?
But
so I see
it's okay. It's no, it's okay. I'm not asking about the reason. I'm just wanted to make sure my assumption is correct, that you believe Islam is false, right? That's correct. That's a correct assumption. I just don't want to assume and go forward with this. Is that correct? You believe Islam is false, correct?
I don't believe it's true, or it is from.
Okay, good. That's good. Okay, yeah. So I agree with you. What would you say to somebody who, like a lot of people who have had very, very vivid spiritual experiences where they met the Mahdi, that if somebody came to you and said, like, look, I had a very spiritual experience, and the Mahdi, the 12 Imam, if they're Shia, they said it came to me and I saw him as I'm seeing you right now, as vividly, and to me that it was so clear, and to me that is absolute proof that all of this is correct, and all of this, because there are many people who have experienced Mahdi visiting them while they're awake. If somebody said that to you, what would you tell them?
I would probably think that is a counterfeit, because of I pretty much evaluate or examine any kind of spirit or any kind of spiritual claim from the Holy Scriptures. So you got to be consistent with the apostles' teaching.
Okay, so let's say this, Emmanuel. Let's say, can we evaluate this without using Scripture?
Well, I think. I mean, I don't think we could, because you know, like, you know, I think we will make like a categorical mistake where we will see a thing that happens like naturally, or we think that we could explain it like scientifically, but there are things that can't be explained by using like a human intellect. So I don't think there's like a measurement that you can, oh, this is from God or this is not from God. kind of thing. It's like, I don't think that you could measure like spiritual things with the human mind.
Okay.
Because essentially, if you could measure it with a human mind, it means that it was created by a human mind. So you can know that those experiences are man-made; those are not God-made.
But there's been a lot of claims of people's religious experiences, right? And like, I think you would agree, like, they're obviously not all true in what they claim, right? I'm trying to think, for example, there's a very famous example of a cargo cult. If you've ever heard of this phenomenon, this actually started the term. There was a group of people that lived in they were Melanesian people, and I believe it was it Prince Philip, I think it was, who there's some pictures that washed up on shore along with some cargo, and a religion was founded on this. They thought that this British royal person who they had never heard of and they didn't know was going to come back in their lifetime and was going to do all these things. And this kind of phenomenon happened. I mean, obviously that's a very clear example, right, of a very man-made influence happening, right? So I think, like, you don't have to be a Christian, you don't have to be a Muslim to like observe that and say, oh yeah, there's definitely studies that we can, forces at work that we can look at with the human mind, right? I mean, do you agree that there are at least some experiences that we can examine that way?
Okay, so if we could do that, let me agree for the sake of that argument, right? So let me agree, and let's say, so we're saying that if there's like a harmful effect to society, it is probably a counterfeit, or it's just like a made-up thing.
I don't even know if that necessarily has to be true.
Impact.
I mean, there could be spiritual experiences that have negative impacts on society, and that could be real, right?
Okay, so in this case, we're going to dismiss each and every practice that is out there.
This is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying. I think you want to look at you looked at Armin's example, and you're like, you know what? I would look at Armin's example and see what we would interpret through the scripture, right? And so my only point is, I think we can actually look at it through a secular lens, because I think that's what we would want to do for other kinds of experiences, right? I think that we can actually come to at least some conclusions that, hey, some of these experiences may have natural origins. Maybe not all of them. Maybe some of them are legit, but I think you would agree at least some of those experiences have some natural influence or origins, right? Or do you not agree with that?
I do agree that it has like a natural origin, as you just said.
Okay, so if some of them have natural origins, right? If so, just real quick, I mean, if some of them have natural origins, we must have a method then to determine which have natural origins versus which have spiritual origins. That's what I'm interested in. So what method can we use to determine whether an experience is spiritual? Do you think we can only do that through scripture, or do you think there are other ways we can determine that?
I would say that pretty much if the effect is very much, I don't know what you call it, like harmful, or if it is very like abusive in some sort, I would say that there are things that indicate we could pretty much like dismiss someone's, like, let's say if someone is like joining a group, and that group just like if the effect is just like anxiety, or if it's causing like psychological harm or physical harm sometimes, where the group members kind of turn out to be violent or whatever, we could pretty much see that those practices are it is out of like a bad control or whatever.
Okay. So and I'm talking a lot here. I definitely want Armin to chime in if you'd like, Armin. But like, so what I'm hearing from you is you're saying, look, if a group is causing anxiety, if they're causing negative experiences, then that might be an example of a group that may their spiritual experiences may not be true. David Koresh, for example, I talk about Koresh a lot because Koresh is fascinating to me. But like, Koresh ended up doing a lot of harm to his adherents, right? A lot of them died tragically because they were so steadfast in their beliefs, right? So that's one where I think most people would look at and say, okay, yeah, David Koresh definitely wasn't the Messiah, right? Probably wasn't the dude. I'm talking about the guy who is involved in Waco, for those of you who aren't familiar. So I think that's interesting. Are there other ways we can look at whether something is true or not? In other words, like with Armin's example, he's talking about a spiritual experience that may have had positive effects on the people that encountered it, right? So this is an example with positive effects. Does that mean it's necessarily more true or more real?
I mean, there might be a negative or positive impact at the same time, right?
Okay.
So, like, can I ask you this question, for example?
Of course.
I don't know if you could answer it, Dan. So, are you white?
I, by most people's standards, yes.
Okay, so so I'm kind of like dark skinned compared to you. So
Sure.
if like, let's say like a clan member just like came on, right, and they were like teaching their narrative or whatever, wouldn't you say that like the clan's member, their ideas will pretty much empower you, but it will have like a harmful impact towards me? Or would you say that it's just like full like harmful?
Yeah, I mean, like white supremacy, ultimately, I think would have a negative impact on me if I decided to adopt it as a legitimate ideology. But I see your
How does it
point,
have
right?
like a negative impact on you when they're telling you that you are superior?
Okay, well, one, most people don't look at the Ku Klux Klan very positively, right? So there'd be social repercussions if I publicly took on that ideology, right? But the other thing too is like if I identify with a white supremacist ideology, that would affect my relationship with Armin. That would affect my relationship with like a lot of people that I care about. So like it would harm me in the end, right? So
And it will
yeah,
make you hateful and
yeah,
harm yourself. Even if you didn't lose your friends, the hate will harm you emotionally. Like
sure,
having so much hate in your life. Yeah.
yeah.
But can I say something?
Yeah, Armin, you should jump in here.
Yeah. Yeah, because it seems I don't know if you're noticing, maybe I am misunderstanding you, but it seems a bit circular because we are trying to figure out if your spiritual experiences can be used to see whether your belief system is correct. But then when I give you some other people's spiritual experiences, that if we use your method, then it would suggest that their belief system is is correct as well. Then you appeal to scripture, the scripture that we haven't yet figured out, like that if it's correct or not, because you were using your experience to see if we could validate whether this entire ideology is correct or not. So if you go and say, well, the religion, you go back to the source and you say, well, the scripture is correct, then this is circular because you're using the religion to say that your spiritual experience is the correct one and not the Muslim one, and then you're using your spiritual experience to kind of validate that the religion is correct. So you're going in a circular motion. At some point, like, which one is it? Are you using the scripture to prove that your spiritual experience is the correct one, or are you using the spiritual experience to show that the religion and the scripture is correct? One, you have to pick one of these. You can't do both. If you do both, it's circular.
First of all, I don't think I'm making. If I'm making it, I'm really sorry. If I'm making like a circle argument, I guess what I'm trying to say is like, if you see a one, let's say you're seeing like a dollar bill, right? So on the dollar bill, pretty much you just like by using the bill itself, you can pretty much figure out if the bill is from the government or not, right? So what I'm trying to say is, just by looking at the words of scripture, we can actually determine whether it's from God or whether it's from man. So
how?
And the other things, I'm sorry?
How would you determine? With the dollar bill, I can tell you how. Sorry, I can't hear.
Go ahead, Emmanuel. Yeah, there's a little bit of a delay, but that's okay. Go ahead.
Okay.
Okay, so what I did to determine of how the scriptures were correct were I pretty much studied both of the testaments or both of the covenant, you could say. So I'm bilingual, so it kind of like helped me out to study more. So when I studied scriptures, I pretty much found it was very consistent. So you could see the old covenant, you could see the new covenant, and you could pretty much see that they were consistent with their teaching and with the stories aligned. And the other would be like, when I talk about my experiences, I'm not just talking about how I felt when I was reading scripture. There are things that I have sensed with my own senses that are very real and very much, I mean, I could tell that I pretty much like felt the spiritual things with my physical and physical forms. So those are the two things that why I know that the Christian God is very real, and how I could dismiss, other beliefs of some sort.
Gotcha. Emmanuel, I would love to explore this more with you. Unfortunately, we are pretty much over time with this call, honestly. But I'm glad that you called back, because a lot of times when we ask people, "Hey, you should call back and tell us about this thing," they don't do it, but you did. I really appreciate that. I wanted to, in the
Thank you,
future, if
Dan.
you do call back again, what I would like to explore is, one, this idea of consistency between the old covenant and the new covenant, as you mentioned, because obviously I disagree. But also this idea that, does consistency in scripture determine reality? I think that's another interesting idea to explore. But like I said, we're definitely out of time, and I'm gonna go ahead and let you go. But thank you, Emmanuel, for calling in and
Thank you.
being respectful in the conversation here. I know you missed out a little bit on the first bit of that, Armin, but what did you think of that conversation?
I mean, I think I'm gonna try to be positive. I think Dan is good at. Not Dan. Emmanuel was good at listening and
Yeah,
taking what we have to say into consideration,
yeah,
which a lot of people don't do that. So
definitely,
even
definitely.
if I disagreed with almost everything he said,
Yeah,
the main thing is that we're having these conversations and he's listening to responses, which
yeah,
is more than you could say about most people, which is great, which
it
is
is
good.
great. It is great.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that aspect of the conversation as well. I think, like, Emmanuel clearly had an experience that affected him personally, is because he cites this as something that is very meaningful to him. And like I always try to emphasize this again. I don't want to take away from the impact of the meaningfulness this had for you, because clearly it did have an impact. What I want to examine is sort of what it might imply about your experiences, right? Because this experience is implying the truth of a whole book with a bunch of stuff in it, right? It's kind of like, oh man, I see that I don't know, I think I'm examining an electron here. So everything about this person's written about particle physics must be true, right? And it's like, well, wait a minute.
Mm.
That might be just one part of it. And even then we have to examine, the reality of these spiritual experiences, what's really happening here, because I do think that there are very secular explanations as to why those things happen, right? um
Yeah, but
so
the fact that he's calling here must,
mhm.
to me, suggest that maybe he's wondering if what he believes in is true,
Well,
and
I don't
he's
want to
trying to check
I
it.
don't want to speculate on
Maybe,
people's
yeah, maybe, yeah,
psychology, but
yeah.
either
Okay,
way,
you're
I
right.
do
You're right. I
appreciate
should. Yeah,
him
yeah.
calling in and telling us about it. But I
Okay.
have some quick things I need to go over with you guys that I'm going to share real quick. So just so you're aware, we are taking super chats, okay, folks. So if you would like to give us a super chat, we will read them on the show. Just FYI there. Please, as long as they're YouTube appropriate, of course, we will read them on the show, and I would love to talk to you about that. Also, Armin is going to be available for a Discord after show. I'm not going to be available, unfortunately. So if you're watching and you want to stick around, you can go to the fan run Discord server for that, and links to that are going to be in the description. Another way you can support the show is by donating on Patreon. It's tiny.cc/PatreonTW, and there's a couple different tiers there. And you do get your name shouted out, which, folks, I didn't do the patron of the week before our first call, which is what I always do. And for some reason, I didn't do it today. So we're going to get to that now, actually. So we're going to put them on screen. But one other thing before we do that as well, you can support the show by becoming a member. You can get emojis in the chat, and your name gets highlighted as well. You can do that for as little as 99 cents per month. But folks, I got to do the patron of the week. Okay, patron of the week time. Because every single week, I always got to give a shout out to at least one person who donates on patreon.com. And this week's patron of the week is going to be Don Nelson. Thank you so much to Don Nelson. And thank you so much to everybody that donates. You guys rock. I can't believe it, folks. I have broken precedent today. Okay. I can't remember the last time I didn't do patron of the week, like first thing. And I don't know, Armin's aura, okay, his vibe, he got into my brain and made me forget. So it is what it is. And another thing real quick, because we are kind of in the later end of the show, so I'm going to go ahead and get a couple other announcements out of the way. If you know the show, you know there's some merch, baby. We got some merch for you that you should check out. We got t-shirts, we got hoodies, and all kinds of stuff. What we're doing this month is something a little different. We picked our most sold shirts, our favorite shirts, and we're putting them all together. Because usually we do one shirt a month. This time we're featuring some of the classics we got so far. We got the Rob Boss painting on the left. That was a great episode. Go check that out. We the Halloween episode last year. We got Lizard People Are People Too. My personal favorite. I love that one. And I Was Abducted by Aliens, and all I got was this t-shirt. Is another great one. So check out some of those favorites. That's going to be available for just this month. So
those are great. I like the last
them.
one.
yeah, super good stuff. Last thing before we move on here, if you want to hear our content in audio form only, if you're like me, if you like to listen to stuff while you're doing the dishes or whatever, you should check out tiny.cc/AEN podcast for all of the latest shows on there. It's just another way to watch the shows, and that's also free, by the way. I don't know if people know that, but all of our content is free, so check that out. Okay, so let's go back to the calls. Armin, you ready to talk to some more folks?
Yes, I'm excited actually.
Cool. All right.
If we could get any Muslims, that would be amazing.
That would be super, super amazing. I would love to talk to Muslims or even ex-Muslims. Honestly, we don't have enough of those conversations either on this show. So please, folks at home, if you're watching, let's make it happen. But right now, we do have John from Pennsylvania who wants to talk to us. John, you're live on Truth Wanted. What's up?
Hi, Dan. Hi, Armin. I called, I think last week about authenticity, and with the Desert Fathers. I think we had a brief comment.
Yes, we did talk about that.
I'm an atheist. Yeah, I'm an atheist, and I just wanted to see if I can articulate a little bit of uncouple a couple of things in the last call. I don't want to spend too much time in retreading that, but just to see what your takes might be. Okay. Yes, I believe the argument was circular. I believe that's the world that that particular caller resides in. However, the experience of an emotional experience is quite independent. Now, it's a real experience. This is how, a fantasy experience can be a real experience, and it can be an edifying experience as well. But it doesn't mean that there is an actual God at the other end of it. In other words, you can have an icon before you of any kind. Let's call an icon. You can have the monstrance with the host in it in the Catholic Church, or you can have a surah inscription before you, and you can meditate on that as a sort of a lectio divino, a divine reading, and you can actually enter the virtue aspect of those things, independent on whether it comes from a divine source or not, because you're accessing something within ourselves which is about the goodness in ourselves, has an independent, 100% independent of a creator God. It is something that is actually useful for us. We do it in other ways when we read edifying literature that may not be divinely inspired, so to speak. When we go in and we see a great work of art, we have an aesthetic charge. When we see landscape, when we have these pneumic experiences of the world of love and affection and care, of wholeness, these are not divine things. These are very human attributes that we can access through the meditation on iconography, on chant, on all sorts of things. And I think that he falls down that rabbit hole, and he thinks it verifies the whole spectrum of belief epistemologically. And
I think you're 100% right. I think you're 100% right. Armin, you should give your take first. John's talking about our previous caller, of course.
Yeah, I know. I think what John is saying here is something that actually is very important, and something that I think I should have mentioned with the previous caller, is because one thing, when people have these experiences and we atheists respond to them, sometimes what they're hearing is that we're invalidating their experience. We're telling them that they didn't have that experience. Okay. And they think that we're not listening and we're not hearing them. So we should start this discussion by telling them that we accepted that they had that experience, that they had felt that, and to validate that before we go on and talk about what that doesn't mean to us. By the way, is John now speaking, because I'm not having his audio?
Yeah, no, you're coming in loud and clear, Armin. We totally get that. And here's my take on this too, John. I mean, first of all, you said it beautifully already. But like, I do think you're right. What we typically interpret as something divine can have natural explanation to it. I have this coworker, incredibly smart. I don't think he watches the show, so I'll say he works in our IT department and has a degree in philosophy. So he's a smart dude. But thinks that there has to be something divine or something like God-like that created us because we have a capability to love. And I was just like, that's very nice. But like, also, like, would we have a capability to love if we didn't have like oxytocin, for example? Like, you know what I mean? I think there's like natural explanations for this stuff that we find to be so compelling, and that we tend to, as you put it, like validate these other spiritual ideas that actually aren't as connected as we might think. And I think the universality of these experiences, Armin gave a great example about how a Muslim is going to interpret some of that, means that, hey, there must be something natural there, as opposed to, oh, the Muslim God exists, also the Hindu gods exist, also everything else exists. Like, that just seems more likely, right?
Yes, it does. And just on the other end of it, if an atheist or a theist were to invalidate an atheist, let's say an atheist Buddhist who is ensconced in a certain kind of meditation in the moment, whether it be mindfulness or a certain amount of a sutra prayer, that kind of thing. All you can say is, look, they're having this authentic experience of the unity of, which is a collapse of subject-object, really, and it has nothing to do with divine, has nothing to do with their existence of a God, and so all they're left to do, whether it's a numinous experience of landscape, music, whatever, or it's a Buddhist experience of that, all they're left to do is disqualify it. I call it, you're listening to the devil, you're a demon.
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
Something like that out of a defense, which is invalidation. You're having an inauthentic experience, is what they're saying.
Right.
You are
John,
inauthentic, and that's why I brought up the Desert Fathers before. Yeah.
This is what I think. You need to watch this if you haven't, and I'm going to recommend everybody watching this. There's a documentary. I believe you can watch it I think you could rent it on YouTube, or it might be free. It's called Marjo. I don't know if you've ever heard of Marjo, John, but Marjo is about a guy named Marjo who is a evangelical pastor that went around the country doing these sort of Pentecostal kind of experiences, right? Having people speak in tongues and have them baptized and do these Holy Spirits, and he doesn't believe any of it. And this documentary is about sort of his cognitive dissonance with it, but also just like there's literally scenes where they juxtapose him with these people having these incredible moments, and then the next shot is like him on his bed, like counting the money that he gets from all of this. Like, he's just completely cynical of it. And it is incredible, because you have to think like, wow, how could somebody like that? Because the rest, I think there's something pathologically you have to have there to be able to do something like that. The rest of us, I think, are like, well, that can't possibly be people. That can't possibly be something that people do, but it is, and people do take advantage of
That's
these things. You know what I mean? So they're
unbelievable.
not-
I mean,
Yeah.
anyone that has given to a televangelist, anyone who is, anyway, yeah, absolutely. I've heard of this
Yeah.
fellow. Yeah, I'll see
Yeah.
it though. It was a great.
You got to look it up. I
But,
encourage
I'm
everybody
not
at home
gonna-
to look this up, because you
I
won't
will.
believe it. You cannot believe the amount of, I would say, evil, quite frankly, of a
Yes,
guy who convinced that
absolutely.
many people. But and
Yeah.
that's not to say, obviously,
Yeah.
that every person's
Right.
spiritual experience is the result of a con man behind it. Okay, I'm saying that we have
Yeah.
natural wells of inspiration that people can tap into and interpret for you and
Exactly.
say, what you're feeling right now is the Holy Spirit, or what you're feeling right now is
That's right.
something else, right?
Now write me a check. Yeah. Now write me a
Yeah.
check. Yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Well, Dan, thank you so much for taking my call.
Thank you, John.
Armin, thank
Of
you
course.
so much. Okay, have a great night.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Bye.
thank you. Have a great one. Yeah, what'd you think, Armin?
So no, yeah, because I had a technical difficulties. What I really wanted to emphasize, based on what John said, is how helpful it would be when somebody is sharing their experience with you, their spiritual experience with you, is to not right away jump on telling them why they're wrong to believe what they believe in based on the spiritual experience that they have. The
Yeah.
first thing I think it would be helpful to do is to first say that you believe them, that you believe that they had that experience. Okay, like somehow say something about validating that the experience, because we know the experience was real. The experience was real. So what the conclusion might be false, but I think they need to hear that from you, that you're not rejecting the experience before you move on to trying to investigate
Yes.
what that actually means. And I
Yes.
think that would bring the guards down and makes them feel heard, because that
100%.
experience was so meaningful to them. And if you come right out the gate attacking it, they feel it had such an impact, a major impact on them, and they think like you're completely dismissing that real experience that they had. So I think you would be more effective in trying to investigate what the experience is if you tell them that you believe that they had that experience.
You're absolutely right. And if you don't acknowledge that as well, that's where the stereotype comes from of atheists being bereft of spiritual experiences. And the truth is, we do experience those things. We may not call it spiritual, but I guarantee you the emotions we feel and the feelings we have are very similar, if not the same, in a lot of those circumstances, right? I can say that being on both sides of that conversation. But real quickly, Armin, before we move on, I want to give another announcement here. On May 28th, we are going to be broadcasting live in the Free Thought Library. Talk Heathen is going to be hosted by Forrest Valkai, and Atheist Experience is going to be hosted by Forrest Valkai and Jim Barrows. So check that out. Of course, doors open at noon, and it is completely free for you guys to come. I got to host, was it last weekend for Talk Heathen, and it's always great to see people like in person for this stuff. So check that out if you're around the Austin area. And I'm going to go ahead and get this out here too. If you want to email the show, you can definitely do that. It's truth@atheist-community.org, or you can reach out at tv@atheist-community.org, see what's been going on our website at atheist-community.org. And there is a Facebook group run by fans for fans. Check out tiny.cc/FBTWG to interact with other people who like the show. And I would say most people on the Facebook are very nice. They're nice people. Go talk to nice people if you're having a bad day. You know what I mean? Sometimes you just need that conversation. When I'm not live and you can't call me up, go to the Facebook group, you know? But with that out of the way, we have a couple different calls here. I'll see how many, we're at the end of the show, and this always happens, folks. I got a bunch of you calling in, and we don't always get to everybody. We're going to try to get to everybody if we can. But for right now, I'm going to take Matt, who's calling in from Oregon. Matt,
Hello?
you are live on Truth Wanted. What's going on, Matt?
Hi, I've been listening to the show for a while, and I wanted to call in and talk about how I'm no longer a conspiracy theorist, but I was for at least 2 years during COVID.
Oh man, wait, were you a conspiracy theorist when you first watched this program, or was this afterwards?
No.
Okay.
This
No,
is
okay.
Afterwards.
Okay.
I found you guys through the atheist experience, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, gotcha.
But,
yeah, so yeah, tell me about that.
All right, well, I used to watch a lot of YouTube videos, and I got sucked into them sucked into conspiracies through the Pizzagate stuff, because it's they're like, don't trust the media and look at the the symbols that are all these symbols mean that people are pedos, but they're just symbols, and it's all conjecture, and they're assuming that something is happening when it really isn't. There's no actual evidence for something. When who the real pedos are, like the Republicans, supporting child marriage bills. So
Sure.
It seems like an actual disinformation campaign, possibly to distract people. Maybe it's just through their own desire, to project on other people. But yeah.
Yeah.
Can you
Honestly,
hear me?
Matt,
heard a
I
beep
could
in
do
my
a whole
earbud.
deep dive on Pizzagate, because that is, first of all, the precursor
Yeah.
to QAnon. But also, like, there's
Right.
I think Pizzagate was a tipping point in online conspiracy culture, because that reached such a mainstream status that I don't think any other conspiracy theory online had really reached before. And I think you're definitely
Not
not
really.
alone in your experience, right? In that being convincing
Oh, and
to
Guts
you.
Gibson, shout out to her.
Yeah, that's a
Gutsy
given is
Gibson,
awesome.
shout out.
Shout
She
outs to Gutsy
exposed
Gibbon.
Robert Steffer.
Yeah. Okay. So Matt, you started believing
Yeah.
Pizzagate and you were really into this. So I'm assuming you started to believe in other stuff too, because you never just believe in one conspiracy
Yeah,
theory,
I kind
right?
of got into flat Earth also.
Ah, flat Earth.
Yeah.
Of course. Of course. So you're getting into these beliefs,
That's all
and I guess this
combined.
is happening during COVID. So that's pretty tough.
Yep.
But obviously you're not,
Yeah, so then you're
you
taught
don't believe them anymore.
No.
Yeah. So why not? What happened?
I looked at the Bible and realized the Bible is bullshit. So then everything these people are spouting normally they're Christians or some sort of variation of Christianity. So then what they're direct, the Torah and also the New Testament is basically bullshit because of all the contradictions and how, their supposed God is actually evil and has them kill babies just as many as they claim the Democrats are. So they're like, they're just projecting because they're worshiping the entity or supposed entity, which doesn't really exist, that actually does just as worse things as they claim the opposite community does. So,
Interesting.
looking at it critically and saying, wait, what these people are worshiping or, want you to worship is actually just as bad as what they say someone else is doing. I'm sorry I'm repeating myself, but I'm kind of nervous.
No, you're totally fine. I think Armin had a question for you. Yeah, go ahead, Armin.
Well, I had a question, but now I'm going to say something else because of what he just said. But it kind of reminds me on how when the satanic panic was happening, people were not paying attention to how many, because they were like, oh, they're coming for the children. The Satanists are coming for the children. And people were not noticing how much the Catholic Church was going for the children. And now when we have the same panic going with the trans people are coming for the children, and what we're saying is like it's actually a lot of Republicans and conservatives that are going for the children. So it's always like, oh, they're going for the children, but actually look over here, not over there. So what you just said reminded me of that, right? Yeah.
I think the cause for a lot of these people, a lot of these sexual offenders, is not the only cause. But I think a lot of it is sexual repression causes these people to offend. And if they were actually comfortable with their sexuality, they would never offend and they would never bless someone.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a psychology degree, right? But I can't help but think that there has to be some sort of connection there of people who find themselves in positions of power, right? Because being a pastor is a position of power. You have a congregation, you have an expectation of leadership. And like, I think that can bring out something in people. You know what I mean? Like it's an old trope, right? Of the CEO who likes to go see the dominatrix in his free time, right? I think there's probably some element of that. Sure.
Or the CEO is the old secretary and CEO trope, or secretary and boss trope. It's nothing new, but man. And I will email you guys. I can help you guys do maybe give you guys the conspiracy theorist perspective on being on the whole Pizzagate deal, because that's still going. That's people. I think you're going to see a lot more things in the news about it in the next coming years, especially with Trump panicking and these people getting in their own echo chambers. That's another thing is, I don't know if you know about this guy Destiny. He's a pretty big streamer on the semi-left. He has a lot of bad takes, but also he has some good ones. So, but he is he directly challenges a lot of these people that are conspiracy theorists, like the vaccine anti-vax people. They are shocked that someone is actually challenging them because they're used to just being banned, and being banned confirms their conspiracy. So of course, companies like YouTube need to follow their advertisers and their investors. So I understand why. They don't understand that it's the investors, or maybe they do, but they also think that it validates what they believe in. So,
I one of the
talking about something you're going to blame. Sorry.
Sure. No, you're good, Matt. One of the objectives in this show is I love talking to people who have that. Frankly, we don't talk to enough people like that. Because I like hearing it verbalized, because I think part of why you probably got into this rabbit hole, Matt, and I'm just speculating here, is that especially if it's COVID, like when you start to get into it, you probably aren't talking to your friends about it at first and stuff, right? You're probably doing this research on your own and trying to figure stuff out. And how much radicalization happens by people just watching a couple YouTube videos or doing some private internet research, you know what I mean? And trying to figure this stuff out. Like, I think that is a gateway to it. And you're right. Like I need to do a deep dive on Pizzagate, because people don't understand Pizzagate. I hate when people talk about it, because there's a lot of nuances to it. And there's and it was the gate. Like I do firmly believe like QAnon would not be a thing without Pizzagate. I think that connection is
because it's directly there, but and the researchers that started Pizzagate.
And it has directly affected the political climate today in a way that I would argue is unprecedented. Some people said it has happened before with other conspiracies, like, for example, the anti-Masonry movement. That's happened. There's still relics of that, but that used to be really bigger, stuff like that. So Armin, you had a point.
Obama. Remember when people thought Obama was like a Muslim? That was a big
people still think he's a Muslim. Oh yeah, that's definitely part of that's a whole other can of worms too. Armin, you had something you wanted to say though.
I wanted to ask, do you have any
people that are anti-Freemasonry?
People that
are anti-Freemasonry are basically anti-America. They're basically anti-America because America is built on Freemasonry. So
there is that element of it, but and maybe that's another topic for a deep dive, but Freemasonry in this country has a very weird political history, because there was a very prominent, and like your politics used to be determined also by what you thought about the Masons was like as common as like what you thought about abortion. You know what I mean? Like that used to be a way more prominent thing that people just like don't give a shit about today, but in part was fueled by conspiracies about what Masons were doing and stuff. So there's a very interesting rabbit hole there that I'll have to get to another time. But anyway, Armin, what did you have?
No, I was just gonna ask Matt a quick question. If you have any tips for us for how to talk to somebody who, based on you yourself being into conspiracy theory, do you have any tips for us on how to talk to somebody who's into conspiracy theories?
Yes. Find out find out what God they believe in, and if they believe in God, and whether or not they think that God is good, and then question them, why would a good loving God allow these people to be in power and control the world?
Well, that's an interesting one. I don't.
All the big ones are associated on worshiping or on being in control, having some sort of oligarchy controlling the whole world. So,
see, Matt, I would say, if I was a Christian, though, Matt,
would allow that.
I feel like I would have a good response, though.
Yeah.
I would just be like, well, look, Satan is prince of this earth, right? And so, those who are influenced by Satan will have power on this earth, but when the new heaven and earth is created, they won't have power, and justice will be served, right? There's my Christian response. So
I would give you if I was putting my religious hat on, I would say like God is giving you the opportunity. God is having this evil on earth to give you the opportunity to prove yourself, that you stand up to that evil. If there was no evil, you wouldn't have the chance to stand up to it, to show God that you're a worthy warrior.
There you go.
Well,
Armin's a crypto Christian confirmed. Sorry, Matt. We got a few more calls here. I'm gonna have to go ahead and let you go. But I do appreciate you calling and telling us about that. Yeah, you too. And I love it when people talk about their experiences with conspiracy theories, because there's differences, but so many similarities as well.
Yeah, I like to put my religious hat on and come up with answers as a religious person,
Sure.
because it just demonstrates when you have magic on your hand, when you have magic on your side, you could just make stuff up. It's just so easy.
Yeah.
When you're not limited by a real physical world and nature and reality, it's just so easy to just come up with answers.
Yeah, I agree. And like especially when you talk about stuff like Pizzagate, stuff like QAnon, that magical thinking aspect of it that you do see in religious conversations obviously does show up in conspiracy theories. And so it's no surprise that most conspiracy theorists are also Christian in the United States. That seems to be a very big through line. Obviously, around the world, there's probably a lot of Muslim conspiracy theorists too, but different.
But QAnon is amazing how QAnon is taking a little bit of everything, a little bit of Christianity, a little bit of the Satanic Panic, a little bit of the anti-Semitic conspiracy theories and Illuminati. All of it. It's just like a mix of all of these combined into QAnon. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, QAnon. Yeah, I mean, I need to do. We've talked a lot about QAnon on the show before, but like maybe I need to talk about it again because like it is. You're right. It is a very powerful amalgamate of many things. That is. I mean, like.
And the Red Scare.
Yeah, it's honestly ineffable. The impact that QAnon has had on American culture. Like it's truly unique and fascinating. But real quickly. I want to let you guys know, have you ever said to yourself, hey, I really love the ACA content. I just love it. I want more of it. I want it all the time. I want it pasted to my eyeballs 24/7. Well, we got you covered because there is a brand new 24/7 live stream of Atheist Experience that you can check in anytime. There's clips and specials from over 26 seasons of the show. So you can watch and listen to your favorite hosts. And maybe hear some hosts you haven't heard of, or just join in the chat and talk to other folks who are there, because there's pretty much always people there. So something to look at in your free time. I put it on the background, So anyway, that's something to do. We have more calls though, Armin. I'm gonna try to get at least one more. Let's see if we can do that. We got please correct me if I'm wrong. Lady Zhang Xi calling in from New York. Is that correct?
Zhang, yeah. Yeah, Lady
awesome.
Zhang.
Got it. My Chinese is impeccable. Okay, it's flawless. Anyway, Lady Zhang,
I've heard.
Welcome to the show. What do you got for us?
Well, I wanted to talk about the idea of basically. There's a couple different things I'd like to talk about, but I'd like to talk about the idea of, because I'm just coming out of my Christian faith. Accepting atheism and agnosticism and anti-theism.
Sure. Okay.
And I'd like to talk about
congrats.
Congrats to you. That's a congratulations is in order. That's a difficult thing to do. You should give yourself a pat on the back. If nobody's told you congratulations for that yet, here we are. So congratulations.
No one has. Yeah. Thank you. So I'm wondering, when do I get my card-carrying atheist membership in the mail, Daniel?
Oh, did you fill out the paperwork? You gotta send it to, the folks at, I don't know, 1000 Hell Lane. I don't know where I'm going with this.
Wait, no. Wait, have you been baptized? You have to be debaptized. Have you?
Yeah,
been
you gotta
baptized?
be debaptized. That's right. You gotta be debaptized.
No, how do I get debaptized?
We dunk you in unholy water.
Do I take a sand shower?
Yeah.
Unholy.
It's like the nastiest
unholy
stuff.
Water.
It's like urine and like gross stuff. It's the most unholiest concoction you can think of. And we dunk you in that.
You're making atheism sound gross.
Well, yeah, that's true. Like blood and like, yeah. Yeah, but no. I'm really glad for you. So I see here a note from the call screener that you wanted to specifically talk a little bit about the emotional experiences and the validation of those experiences in relation to beliefs. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, like it seems like a lot of the calls tonight have been around that line. Like that one guy was calling in and he said, art and these experiences that we come through with our experiences in religion, are totally can be totally have this disconnection from any real creator God.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I had to figure out. You know, I was having all these emotional experiences that I attributed to some sort of creator God. And then when I realized, there's so many contradictions within the realm of every scriptural tome that you could read. You know, there's misogyny and bigotry and, you know, anti-LGBTQ literature within all of them, and the endorsement of slavery and owning people as property. You know, and then God is the one, and not to mention all of the atrocities that God is taking credit for.
Yeah, absolutely.
It rubs.
Yeah, it does rub against our common intuitions of what we think is good, right? And here's another thing that, you know, I think is good to point out. When you found out that the Earth was round and not flat, I'm assuming you believe the Earth is round. You didn't like cry about it. Right? You didn't have like an emotional reaction to this. This wasn't something that you had to absolve for yourself, right? This is just kind of like a fact that you learned, right? But for some reason, when it comes to these religious facts, when it comes to the existence of God, the existence of, you know, Jesus and our sins and the death and everything, like for some reason, for a lot of Christians, there is this emotional component to this, which, like, if it was just a fact like any other part of the world, doesn't really track as far as like why that should be there, right? So yeah, I think there is something to that. Armin, you look like you had something you want to say.
Yeah, well, because I think one of them is at least pretending to serve a need that we all have, right? So I mean, there are facts like, okay, the Earth being sphere is a fact, but it's not addressing certain natural needs that humans have. Well, religion, when it's making claims about the world, it's not just making claims, it's also filling a gap, like our need for community, our need for a sense of awe, our need of a sense of belonging, community, all of that, being part of something greater than ourselves, a sense of significance. It touches upon all of those things, and it also gives you this false belief that it's the only way to satisfy those beliefs. So without it, so even when you challenge those things that are being claimed as to be factual, it's not just that you're being corrected on certain information. The source of all those needs also being satisfied and fulfilled, all of that is being taken away from you. So you have a more it's not just about like, am I right or am I wrong, is am I going to be able to fill all of this without believing in this religion. So that's why there's a difference, I think.
May I comment, Armin? May I comment, Daniel?
Yeah, that was Armin that made that.
Just another quick thing. This is why trying to convince people out of religion is not just a rational discussion; it's also an emotional discussion. We can't just be like, "Oh, here's rationally why you're wrong." We also have to show to people why they are going to be able to find alternatives to satisfy those needs without religion. So we have to think about the emotional aspect of it as well, not just the rational.
Right. And I think one thing for me in coming out of religion and faith is that I found that there's so many things that my faith supplied for me that I thought can never be found elsewhere, you know. And then when I came out of it, I was like, oh, look, I'm still the same person, but I don't have any of this baggage that I used to have. You know, I'm free to smoke my tobacco and my cannabis and drink my drink when I like to, as long as I'm being responsible. I don't see anything wrong with those things, but my friends within the church would still give me a hard time about it, you know? And I'm like, it's just tobacco, smoke, and drink. What's the wrong? You know, what's the harm in it if you're being responsible with it? What's the harm in an atheist and an agnostic saying he has a soul when everything that Armin described about, you know, our longing to our need to belong and our needing for community and our needing for peace and love, these are all what Christians would call the soul. But you know, a soul can be the soul doesn't have to be anything ethereal beyond that would last beyond this earthly confinement. It could just be something material.
Sure. Yeah, Armin,
okay. I just want to just maybe add that there are non-religious arguments you could make against tobacco. So.
Right. Yeah. Tobacco will give you cancer. I mean, like that's, you know, but
So,
you don't need us telling you that.
suggest-
There's a lot of
The ACA does not support smoking or condone it necessarily or not.
the opinions of the host do not necessarily reflect that of the ACA. That is, there's a disclaimer there for a reason. But anyway, no. You brought this up because, like, I think when apologists like talk about religion as if it is a series of, okay, if X is true and if Y is true, then Z is true. Like, to me, it's disingenuous in a way. I know that they're trying to legitimize, you know, religious positions as intellectually sound, but none of us, I mean, most people who come to Christianity in particular, didn't do it for intellectual reasons, right? I mean, like, Lee Strobel likes to pretend like, you know, he did some investigating and now he's a Christian. I don't believe it. I'm sorry, I don't. That's just not how most people operate. That's just not how most people historically come to these beliefs. I think it provides social benefits. There's a lot of advantages that come with it, but also emotional needs are being fulfilled when these beliefs are happening, and a solidarity, a group identity, a life purpose, all being fulfilled when you have this. And that's why the atheist position seems so off-putting to a lot of people, because, like, how do you fill the void if all that is gone? And that's something you have to figure out for yourself. I can't tell you how to do it. Other people can give you ideas, but, like, that's the hard work. And that's why, seriously, we say congratulations to you for figuring this out.
Yes,
because it fucking sucks. Okay, I mean, like, you're not happy about it at first, right? I'm happy about it now, but, like, man, that sucked. It was really bad for a while. So, you know, I can relate.
Yeah.
Seriously,
I'm now feeling the rigors of it all. Because I've got, like, to reprioritize all my whole friend list and shit like that, you know. And then, like, I want to really write the case against Christ, but it's going to just start out. It's only going to be 2 words. He's dead. Get over it.
Yeah, that's 4 words, but I get where you're coming from.
Well, why would it?
Yeah. No, we got you. Lady Zhang Xhi, thank you so much for calling in.
Thank you. That was a great call.
I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you for having me, Dan.
Yeah, of course, I will have to let you go now because we are at the end of the show here. I want to thank Armin Navabi for joining me today. Armin, we had a little bit of technical issues, but, you know, you pulled through, and you were here. So thank you so much for being on the show with me today.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed. Yeah, great callers, great conversation. Yeah.
So if people
thank you for all.
Yeah, of course. If people want to find you and your stuff where you're at, where should they go?
So we have a show on the Atheist Republic YouTube channel. We have one show every week that we cover the news on religion-related news from all around the world. It's the most global religion-related show anywhere. So we have, like, countries that most other atheist channels don't cover, like Bangladesh, Iran, Egypt, Indonesia, Malaysia, United States, Canada, France, Mexico. It's all over the planet, right? So every week, me and Susanna cover 10 news items. So that's one of our shows. And then we have another show that we do once a week with Secularity, where now we're going on and hunting weird religious videos, and we're just looking at Islamic, Hindu, or maybe Christian, mostly Islamic videos, and we're just responding to claims Muslims make on their YouTube channels. So that's that. So if you want to have a more global perspective about where, you know, on atheist activism and weird stuff happening from religious people across the planet, not just 1 or 2 countries or Western countries, I think Atheist Republic would be a really good channel for you guys to check out.
And that is the same Secularity that was on this program 2 weeks ago. Listen, that guy, Secularity, he is everywhere. Okay. If there's a case for the Holy Spirit, I would say that he probably is the manifestation of it, because he is everywhere and he is present on all atheist content. I mean, I don't know how he finds the time. He's just he's everywhere. But yeah, shout outs to Secularity for that. And Armin, you know, definitely check out you know, the stuff that he's got going on here, because Armin, you're a busy man too. You got a lot of stuff going on. But before we close out tonight, we have to thank the wonderful, spectacular, amazing, stupendous crew that helped make this show happen every single week, rocking the Truth Wanted swag, doing it and doing it well, doing it well. And they are awesome, and this show would not be here without them. So we really mean it when we say thank you to the crew. And of course, thank you to the mods in the chat and everybody else who helps out with making Truth Wanted happen. You guys rock. Before we go, also, last call for our prompt, which is create a useless conspiracy theory. Listen, if Armin can come up with 3 of them, I expect you guys to at least come up with 1. Okay, want to hear your answers? Please comment below. But for now, that's going to be it for tonight. Armin, do you have any last words, any words of wisdom before we close out the show?
Oh, that's a lot of pressure. Can I?
Yeah.
I just want to thank One-Eyed Heathen, who just gave us a super chat.
You're right.
Use a super. Yeah.
Armin is doing
super chat.
Listen, Armin's being a better host than me right now, because he's paying attention to the chat and he's seeing that we have a super chat. So we need to read that super chat. And that's from One-Eyed Heathen, who says, I just want to advertise Atheist Republic and suggest having Suzanne on sometime as well. And they gave $5 for that. Thank you, One-Eyed Heathen. So
thank you.
Yeah, we might be able to make that happen. We'll see.
Words of wisdom. I also want to mention that religion, where when we mention about all the services that it thinks that all the needs that it satisfies, it's actually acting like it's solving a problem that it itself created. Because the people who feel that they're missing something when they're losing the religion, you don't feel this. People who never had the religion to begin with don't actually feel like that. They don't feel like they're missing something. So the things that you think like you're losing, it's the religion has brainwashed you to think that you're getting them, that you need them from the religion. If you never had that religion, you wouldn't be feeling that you're missing anything, right?
Ooh.
So it's an illusion. That's all I wanted to add.
Damn, that's some words of wisdom right there. Thank you for those words of wisdom, Armin. And thanks again for being on the show tonight. No, very deep. That was some good stuff. I like it. But for now, folks, that is going to be it. I am Objectively Dan, and this has been another episode of Truth Wanted. Remember to always keep wanting the truth, and I'll see you next time.
Watch The Non-Prophets and join the hosts in the live chat Sundays at 3 p.m. Central between The Atheist Experience and Talk Hidden. Visit tiny.cc/YTNP.
Okay.